The distress signal had been repeating for 6 hours when Hale finally found the ship. It drifted in the darkness between stars, spinning slowly like a dead leaf on water. The vessel was beautiful even in ruin, silver metal that seemed to glow from within, curves and angles that human engineers could never dream of, a royal transport worth more than would earn in 10 lifetimes. He should have called it in, let the authorities handle it. They were not known for thanking humans, they barely looked at humans. To them his kind were mayflies, brief lives, small minds, unworthy of attention. But the signal kept calling, and Hale had never been good at walking away. His salvage ship locked onto the transport with a grinding sound. The airlock took 3 tries to open. When it finally gave way, stepped into a hallway filled with emergency lights and the smell of something burning. Bodies lay everywhere, guards in their silver armor, their faces frozen in pain. Their blood pooled on the floor, and it was silver too, like liquid metal. Whatever had attacked this ship had been fast and brutal. Moved through the carnage with his weapon raised. He checked each room. Empty. Empty, more dead. Then he heard it, a small sound, breathing but wrong, wet and struggling. The door at the end of the hallway opened into what looked like a medical bay. And there, on a table surrounded by machines that beeped in warning, lay a woman. No, not just a woman. Had seen enough news feeds to recognize the mark on her forehead. A small crystal embedded in the skin, glowing faintly blue. Royal blood. This was a princess. She was dying. Her skin had turned where it should have been pale white. Black veins spread across her arms and neck like cracks in ice. Her silver blood dripped from her nose, her ears, the corners of her eyes. The machines around her screamed their alarms, but there was no one left to answer. Moved closer. Her eyes opened. They were violet, bright with fever, and they looked at him with confusion. "Human," she whispered. Her voice was like wind through broken glass. "How strange. I will die looking at a human." "You're not dying," said, though he had no idea if that was true. The ship's medical AI spoke then, its voice calm despite everything. "Princess is infected with void rot, a parasitic organism that consumes blood cells. There is no known cure. Time until complete organ failure, 4 hours." Stared at the dying princess. He should leave. This was not his problem. They had made it very clear over centuries that humans were beneath them. Let them save their own. But she was so young. He could see it in her face. Young by standards meant she might only be a few hundred years old, a child to her people. And she was alone, surrounded by her dead protectors, waiting for the darkness to take her. "Is there anything that can slow it down?" he asked the AI. "Unknown. The parasite is resistant to all standard treatments. However," the AI paused, "I am detecting unusual antibodies in your blood, human. Preliminary analysis suggests they may have a neutralizing effect on the void rot organism." Blinked. "My blood." Human blood contains certain proteins not found in biology. In theory, a sufficient transfusion could provide Princess System with the tools to fight the infection. However, the required amount would be significant, dangerous to the donor. "How dangerous?" "Potentially fatal." Princess made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Go, human. I will not ask a mayfly to die for me. Your kind have so little time already." Looked at her, at the black veins spreading across her face, at the silver tears of blood running down her cheeks. He thought about his life, the empty salvage runs, the debts he could never pay, the ex-wife who had stopped answering his calls years ago. What was he saving himself for? "Start the transfusion," he said. The AI did not argue. Machines moved. A needle found his arm. He sat down in a chair beside the princess's table and watched his red blood flow through a tube into a filter and then into her silver veins. It hurt more than he expected. Not the needle, but the emptiness that came after. His body screaming that something was wrong, that he was losing too much, that he needed to stop. He did not stop. Hours passed. Princess drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she screamed. Sometimes she whispered words in a language did not understand. The black veins began to fade slowly, so slowly. His blood was working. But he was fatting too. By the second day, could barely lift his head. His skin had turned pale. His hands shook. The AI warned him again and again that he was approaching critical levels, that another transfusion would kill him. He gave another transfusion. On the third day, Princess opened her eyes. They were still violet but clearer now. The fever had broken. The black veins were gone. She turned her head and saw slumped in the chair beside her, barely breathing, his arms still connected to the machine. "You fool," she whispered. "You absolute fool." Tried to smile. His lips were dry and cracked, still alive. "Yes." She sat up slowly, looking at her hands. Her skin was pale again, healthy, but something was different. When she pressed her finger to her palm, the blood that rose to the surface was not pure silver anymore. There were traces of red in it, traces of him. "What have you done to me?" "Saved your life, I think." Eyes were closing, he had nothing left. "You're welcome." She caught him before he fell from the chair. Her arms were stronger than they looked. She held him, this strange human who had given everything for someone he did not know, and she felt something she had never felt before, a warmth in her chest, a connection she could not explain. "Stay alive, human," she said. "That is an order." He did not hear her. He had already fallen into darkness. When the rescue fleet arrived 2 days later, they found their princess alive and healthy, sitting beside an unconscious human whose vital signs were barely stable. The fleet commander expected gratitude. He expected relief. Instead, Princess stood before him with fire in her violet eyes. "This human saved my life," she said. "He will be treated with honor." The commander bowed. "Of course, Your Highness, he will be taken to Prime." "Good." What the commander did not say, what Princess would not learn until later, was that honor and freedom were not the same thing. On Prime, a human who carried royal blood in his veins was not a hero. He was a problem. And problems had a way of disappearing. Woke in a bed softer than clouds. For a long moment, he simply lay there, staring at a ceiling that seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved through it like swimming fish. The air smelled of flowers he could not name. Everything was beautiful and everything was wrong. He sat up slowly. His body felt weak but whole. Someone had healed him, fed him, dressed him in clothes that felt like water against his skin. The room around him was larger than his entire salvage ship. Windows looked out onto a city of silver towers and floating gardens, stretching to a horizon painted in colors he had never seen. Prime, the throne world, a place no human had ever been allowed to visit. The door opened without sound. A woman entered, tall and thin, with silver hair that fell to her waist. Her eyes were pale gold and they looked at like he was an interesting insect. "You are awake," she said. "Good, the queen wishes to see you." Stood on legs that trembled, the queen. Queen, mother of princess, ruler of the empire for the last 12,000 years. The woman smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. She has many questions for the human who bled for her daughter. They walked through hallways that seemed to go on forever. Other passed them and every single one stopped to stare at. He heard whispers, mayfly, human, contamination. He kept his eyes forward and his back straight. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing him afraid. The throne room was a cathedral of light. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling lost in brightness. And at the far end, on a throne that looked grown rather than built, sat Queen. She was ancient, could see it in her eyes even though her face was smooth and perfect. Those eyes had watched civilizations rise and fall. Those eyes had seen stars die. They looked at now, and he felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. "So," the queen said, her voice filled the room without effort, "this is the human who saved my daughter." bowed. It seemed like the right thing to do. Your Majesty. Rise, she studied him as he straightened. I am told you gave nearly all your blood, that you pushed yourself to death's door for a princess you had never met. Why? Thought about lying. He thought about saying something noble, something heroic, but looking into those ancient eyes, he knew lies would be useless. She was dying, he said simply. I could help, so I helped. Even though we think of your kind as lesser creatures, even though we have never shown humans any kindness or respect. What you think of me doesn't change what I think of me, met her gaze. I don't let people die when I can save them. That's just who I am. Something flickered in the Queen's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. It passed quickly. Your actions have created a problem, she said. My daughter's blood now carries traces of your own. This bond is unprecedented. It cannot be undone, and it cannot be allowed to become public knowledge. Felt cold? What do you mean? You will remain here on Prime. You will be given comfortable quarters, servants, anything you desire, but you will not leave. You will not contact your people. As far as the galaxy knows, you died in that salvage accident. You're making me a prisoner. I am making you a guest. The Queen's smile was sharp as broken glass. A permanent guest, for your own protection, of course. There are many who would wish to study the bond between you and my daughter, many who would use it as a weapon. You should thank me for keeping you safe. Wanted to argue, he wanted to fight, but he was weak, alone, surrounded by beings who could crush him without effort, so he swallowed his anger and nodded. As you wish, Your Majesty. Days passed, then weeks, explored his gilded cage and found its walls everywhere. He could walk in the gardens, but guards followed. He could visit the library, but certain sections were forbidden. He could eat the finest food and drink the sweetest wine, but every night he returned to a room that locked from the outside. He met others in the court. Prince's older brother, who looked at like he was dirt on clean floors. High Physician, who asked too many questions about blood and spoke too eagerly about studies. And Lady, the Queen's spymaster, who said little but saw everything. None of them were friends. None of them could be trusted. Then one night came to him. She slipped into his room through a servant's passage, wearing a hood to hide her face. When she lowered it, saw that she had changed. The fever was gone, but something else had taken its place. A restlessness, a fire that had not been there before. I am sorry, she said. I did not know she would do this. Sat on the edge of his bed. Did you try to stop her? I tried. She would not listen. She says you are too dangerous to release. Sat beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her. She is afraid. I have never seen her afraid before. Afraid of what? I'm just a human. A human whose blood saved a princess. A human who created a bond that should not exist. Touched her chest where her heart beat. I feel you, even now. I feel your anger, your frustration. I feel how much you miss your home. This bond between us, it is not just in our blood. It is in everything. Looked at her. In the soft light, she did not look like an alien princess. She looked like a woman, young and scared and trying to do the right thing. I feel you too, he admitted. Your loneliness, your sadness. You don't belong here any more than I do. His eyes filled with silver tears. I never belonged. I was always too emotional, too quick to feel. Are supposed to be calm, eternal, unchanging. But I was born wrong. And now, with your blood in my veins, I am even more wrong. Or maybe, said slowly, you're the only one who's right. She looked at him then, really looked, and something passed between them. Not just the bond in their blood, but something older, something human, a connection that needed no explanation. A guard's footsteps echoed in the hallway, stood quickly. I must go, but I will come again. I will find a way to free you, I swear it. She slipped away like a shadow and was alone again. But for the first time since arriving on Prime, he did not feel hopeless. 1 month later, he was invited to a formal dinner. All the great nobles of the empire would be there. was expected to sit quietly, speak only when spoken to, and remind everyone of his place. But when a lord called humanity genetic waste, something broke inside. He stood from his chair and spoke. "You think we're nothing," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "You've had millions of years to build your empire, and what have you done with it? Nothing changes, nothing grows. You just exist forever, doing the same things over and over." He pointed to the window to the stars beyond. "My people crawled out of mud. We discovered fire, built cities, split the atom, and reached the stars, all in 10,000 years. We change, we adapt, we become more than we were. What have you become?" No one answered. The lord who had insulted him looked away, and across the room Princess smiled. It was a small thing, but in that moment knew the truth. He might be a prisoner, he might be surrounded by enemies, but he was not broken, he was not beaten. And somehow, someway, he was going to find his freedom. Discovered the library on a cold morning when he had nothing else to do. It was buried deep in the palace, a place of dust and forgotten books that had little use for physical records anymore. Everything important was stored in crystal data cores that could last forever, but this library held the old things, the things from before. That was where he met Thessaly. She was young by standards, maybe 500 years old. Her hair was pale blue, her eyes curious and bright. She worked as a historian, one of the few who still cared about the ancient past. When she saw walking between the shelves, she did not run or call for guards. She smiled. "The human," she said, "I have heard stories about you. Good stories or bad ones?" "Interesting ones." She tilted her head, studying him. "You know, you are the first human to ever walk in this library, the first human to walk on Prime at all. Does that not frighten you?" Shrugged. "I've been scared before, it passes." That made her laugh. It was a strange sound, like silver bells. "You are different from what I expected. The records say humans are simple creatures, driven by basic needs, incapable of deep thought." "The records are wrong." "Yes," Thessaly said, "I am beginning to see that." They became friends in a careful way. She taught him to read the old language. He told her stories of Earth, of human history, of wars and art, and the strange, beautiful mess of being alive. In return, she showed him secrets that had been buried for thousands of years. "Look at this," she said one day, opening a book so old its pages crumbled at the edges. "This is from before the current dynasty, before Queen and her ancestors took the throne." Leaned closer. The book showed pictures of, but they were different. Their blood was not pure silver, it swirled with other colors, gold, blue, and in some images red. "What is this?" It was called, Thessaly's voice dropped to a whisper. In the old times did not keep their blood pure. They mixed with other species. They believed it made them stronger, more adaptable. Some of the greatest leaders in our history were. Stared at the pictures. What happened to them? Civil war. The pure blood faction believed mixing was corruption. They fought for centuries and eventually they won. They were killed or exiled. Their history was erased. The current royal line rose to power by promising eternal purity. Thessaly closed the book gently. "This is forbidden knowledge. If anyone knew I showed you this, we would both be executed." "Then why show me?" Thessaly looked at him with something like hope. "Because you proved works. Princess should have died. No treatment could save her, but your human blood did. You are living proof that everything the Queen believes is a lie." The truth settled into his chest like a cold stone. He understood now why it had made him a prisoner. It was not just about the bond with, it was about power. If people learned that human blood could save a princess, that the old ways of had value, everything the Queen stood for would crumble. He was not just a problem. He was a threat to the entire empire. That night came to him again. She slipped through the shadows like she always did, but something was different. She moved faster. Her eyes burned brighter. "I felt it," she said. "I felt your discovery, though the truth about my family." Took her hands. Through the bond, he could feel her emotions crashing like waves: anger, betrayal, a strange, terrible hope. "Your mother built her throne on lies," he said, "on murder. She erased an entire part of your history just to stay in power." "I know," his voice shook. "I always felt wrong among my people, too emotional, too quick to love, to hate, to feel. My mother said it was weakness, but maybe it was not weakness. Maybe it was something older, something that was supposed to be there all along." She stepped closer to him. In the dim light, he could see the faint traces of red in her silver eyes, his blood, his life, living inside her. "When I am near you, I feel more myself than I have ever felt," she whispered. "Is that the bond, or is it something else?" Did not know how to answer. He only knew that when she looked at him, the prison walls seemed to disappear. When she touched his hand, he forgot he was supposed to be a lesser being. She made him feel like he mattered. "Maybe it is both," he said. She kissed him then, soft and uncertain, like she was afraid he might break. He kissed her back, and for a moment nothing else existed. Not the prison, not the queen, not the lies and the danger and the impossible odds. Just two people finding each other in the dark. But the moment could not last. The door burst open. Guards poured in, their weapons drawn, and behind them, his face twisted with rage, stood Prince. "I knew it," the prince spat. "I knew you were corrupting her." Pushed behind him, it was a foolish move. These guards could kill him in seconds, but he did it anyway. "She came to me," he said. "She chose this." "She chose nothing. You infected her with your blood, and now you have infected her mind." Drew his blade, a weapon of living crystal that hummed with energy. "I should kill you now. End this contamination before it spreads further." "Brother No" stepped forward. "He saved my life. Whatever else has happened, that truth does not change. He has made you weak, made you feel things I should never feel." Eyes were cold as distant stars. Mother was right to cage him, but she was wrong to let him live. Met the prince's gaze without flinching. Fear screamed in his blood, but he would not show it. He had learned something in his weeks on Prime. These beings might be powerful, but they were also brittle. They had not faced real challenge in thousands of years. They had forgotten what it meant to fight someone who had nothing left to lose. "Your mother is afraid," said quietly. "And so are you, not of me but of what I represent: change, growth, the possibility that everything you believe might be wrong." He spread his arms. "Kill me if you want, it will not change the truth. Your sister lives because a human bled for her. Your pure blood could not save her. Mine could. That fact will haunt your empire long after I am dead." His blade trembled. For a long moment was certain he would strike. But then something shifted in the prince's eyes. Doubt. Just a flicker, but it was there. "Guards," said finally, "return the princess to her chambers. The human stays here." "Brother." "Go, before I change my mind." They dragged her away. She fought, screaming his name, but they were too strong. The door closed behind her and was alone with the prince. "You should have killed me," said. "Perhaps," sheathed his blade. "But I find myself curious, human. My sister is changed. She laughs now. She cries. She feels things I have never felt in 2,000 years of life. Part of me hates you for that." He turned toward the door. "But part of me wonders what it would be like to feel anything at all." He left without another word. Stood alone in the silence, his heart pounding, his mind racing. Time was running out. Would tell the queen. The queen would act. Whatever fragile freedom had built was crumbling. But he was not done yet. Thessaly's forbidden books had shown him the truth, and somewhere in those dusty pages there had to be a way to use it. He just had to find it before his time ran out. The summons came at midnight. 2 guards appeared at its door, their faces blank as stone. They did not explain. They did not need to. Knew where they were taking him before they even started walking. Queen waited in a private chamber, smaller than the throne room but somehow more frightening. Here, there were no witnesses, no nobles to impress, just the ancient ruler and the human who had caused so much trouble. Sit, she said, pointing to a chair across from her. Sat, he had no choice. The queen studied him for a long time. Her violet eyes were darker than deeper, filled with centuries of secrets and schemes. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. I have an offer for you, human. Waited. A ship, enough wealth to live comfortably for the rest of your brief life. A new identity far from space. All you must do is leave. Forget my daughter. Forget everything you have learned here. Live your remaining years in peace. It sounded reasonable. It sounded almost kind, but had learned to hear what did not say. And my memories. The queen smiled. There are treatments, painless. You would wake in your new life with no knowledge of any of this. It would be as if it never happened. You want to erase me. I want to protect my daughter, my empire, my people. The queen leaned forward. You are a good man, Hale. I see that now, but you are also a danger. The bond you share with grows stronger every day. She feels what you feel. She thinks as you think. You are changing her into something she was never meant to be. Or maybe I am helping her become who she always was. Anger flickered across the queen's perfect face. For one moment the mask slipped and saw what lay beneath. Not wisdom, not calm, fear, pure, desperate fear. You understand nothing, hissed. Are meant to be eternal, unchanging. We have survived for millions of years by remaining pure, by refusing to let outside forces corrupt us. The moment we start changing, we start dying. History proves this. History proves that everything ends, replied. The only question is whether you choose how you end or let time decide for you. Your people are already dying, Queen. I've seen it. The empty eyes, the hollow lives. You've lived so long you've forgotten why living matters at all. The Queen stood. Her rage filled the room like a physical force. I offered you mercy. I offered you a life. You have refused both. She walked to the door and spoke to the guards outside. Take him to the lower chambers. The execution will be private. Quick. We will tell the court he died of illness. A mayfly's body could not handle our environment. The guards seized. He did not struggle. There was no point. But as they dragged him through the halls, he reached out through the bond. He did not know if it would work over such distance. He did not know if was awake or even able to feel him. But he tried anyway. He sent her his fear, his love, his goodbye. 3 levels down, in a chamber of cold stone, the guards chained to a wall. A in medical robes entered, carrying a device that hummed with quiet energy. This will be painless, the medic said. Your heart will simply stop. It will be over before you know it. Closed his eyes, he thought of her smile when he made her laugh, of her tears when she spoke of her loneliness, of the way she looked at him like he was worth something. He thought of home, of Earth's blue sky, of the smell of rain on hot pavement, of all the things he would never see again. The medic raised the device. The door exploded. Smoke and fire filled the chamber. Guards shouted and fell. Through the chaos saw a figure moving with impossible speed, silver hair, violet eyes, a face twisted with fury. Yes. She fought like nothing had ever seen. The guards were trained warriors, but she moved through them like water through sand. Her fists struck with the force of machines. Her body twisted and spun, avoiding every blow. In seconds, every guard lay unconscious on the floor. She ran to and tore the chains from the wall with her bare hands. I felt you, she gasped. I felt your fear, your goodbye. Tears streamed down her face, silver and red mixed together. You do not get to say goodbye, Hale, not yet, not ever. She pulled him to his feet. His legs could barely hold him, but she was there, supporting him, refusing to let him fall. Your mother will hunt us, he said. I know. There's nowhere to run. I know, she smiled, and it was fierce and bright and full of hope. But we are not running, we are going down. She led him through passages he had never seen, hidden doors, secret tunnels. The palace had layers beneath layers and knew them all. Where are we going? The lower city, the places the court pretends do not exist. She moved quickly, checking corners, listening for pursuit. Thessaly told me about it. After you were taken, she found me. She and others. Others? Lady, some of the younger nobles, people who are tired of the old ways, glanced back at him. You were right. You changed things, not just me. You made people ask questions they had never asked before. They emerged into darkness, blinked, his eyes adjusting. They were in a city, but nothing like the silver towers above. These buildings were old, worn, built from materials that had not been used in centuries, and the people who lived here were different too. Their blood was not pure silver. It swirled with other colors, ancient traces of the old ways. The descendants of, the ones who had survived the purges by hiding in the shadows. A woman stepped forward. She was old, her face lined with age, which should have been impossible for her, but her eyes were sharp and clear. So, she said, looking at, you are the human who started a revolution. I didn't mean to start anything. The old woman laughed. They never do, but here you are, and here we are, and above us a queen shakes on her throne for the first time in 12,000 years. She took his hands in hers. My name is Elder, and I have been waiting for someone like you for a very long time. Looked at the faces around him. Hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. People who had lived in darkness for generations, waiting for a chance to step into the light. What do we do now? He asked. Stepped beside him. She took his hand and held it tight. Now, she said, we fight. Above them, alarms began to ring. The queen had discovered their escape. The hunt would begin soon. Guards would swarm the lower city. Every exit would be blocked. But did not feel afraid anymore. He felt alive, more alive than he had felt in years. He had come to this world as a prisoner, a mayfly, a nothing, but he had become something more. He had become hope. And hope, he knew, was the most dangerous thing in the universe. Found the answer in the oldest book in Elder's collection. It was written in a language so ancient that even Thessaly struggled to read it, but the meaning was clear once they pieced it together. Long before the pure blood dynasty took power had laws, real laws, laws that even queens could not ignore. One law stood out above all others. Anyone who has shed blood for the crown, read slowly, may demand an audience before the High Council. Their words must be heard. Their grievances must be answered. No ruler may refuse. Elder leaned back in her chair. The right of blood. It was written to protect heroes who sacrificed for the empire. The pure blood faction never removed it because they assumed no outsider would ever qualify. But I qualify, looked at. I bled for the princess, for the crown. I have the right to speak. It is insane, Lady said. She had joined them in the lower city, bringing intelligence and resources from her network of spies. The queen will never allow it. She cannot refuse, not without breaking a law so old it is carved into the foundation of the crystal sanctum itself. Thessaly's eyes were bright with excitement. If she refuses, she admits the old laws mean nothing. Her own power comes from those laws. She would destroy herself. Squeezed hand. It will work, I know it will. Was less certain. He was asking to walk into the heart of power and challenge the most powerful being in the empire. But what choice did he have? Running would only delay the end. Fighting would only bring death. This was the only path forward. Send the message, he said. Tell the queen I demand my right. 3 days later, stood before the crystal sanctum. It was the oldest building on Prime, a cathedral of pure light that had stood for millions of years. Inside, the High Council gathered. Nobles, elders, military commanders, religious leaders. Everyone who mattered in the empire had come to witness the impossible. A human speaking before the throne. Queen sat at the center of the chamber, her face a mask of cold fury. Prince stood beside her, his hand on his blade. Around them, thousands of watched in silence. Walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. He wore simple clothes, the same ones he had arrived in. He carried no weapons. He had nothing but his voice. He reached the center of the chamber and stopped. "Queen," he said, his voice steady despite the fear pounding in his chest. "I invoke the right of blood. I have bled for the crown. I demand to be heard." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The queen's eyes burned with hatred, but she could not refuse. The law was carved into the very walls around them. Everyone could see the ancient words glowing in the crystal. "Speak then, human," she said. "Say what you came to say, and then accept your punishment." Took a deep breath. This was it, everything he had learned, everything he had felt, everything that mattered. "You call my kind mayflies," he began. "You think our short lives make us small, weak, unworthy of respect." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "But you are wrong." He raised his hand, showing the faint silver traces that now ran beneath his skin. "3 months ago I found your princess dying. No medicine could save her, no blood, only mine. A mayfly saved a princess because my people have something yours forgot. We adapt, we change, we become more than we were." The silence was complete. No one moved. "I learned your history while I was here, the real history, the one you tried to erase," pointed to the ancient text on the walls. "Your empire was built by people who mixed with other species, who believed that difference made them stronger. Your greatest heroes carried blood of many colors." Queen gripped her throne. "Lies, ancient propaganda." "Then why did you try so hard to hide it?" challenged. "Why did your ancestors kill why did they burn the histories and bury the evidence?" He shook his head. "Because they were afraid, just like you are afraid now." He turned to face the crowd directly. "Your empire is dying, not from war, not from disease, from fear. You are so terrified of change that you have forgotten how to live. You exist forever, but for what? What have you built? What have you dreamed? What have you become in all your millions of years?" He pointed to who stood among the crowd with the people from the lower city. "Look at your princess. She was dying until my blood saved her. Now she lives, she feels. She loves and laughs and cries like she never could before. Is that corruption? Or is that what life is supposed to be?" Prince stepped forward, his hand still on his blade. The crowd tensed, waiting for violence, but did not draw his weapon. Instead, he looked at with something strange in his ancient eyes. "All my life," the prince said slowly, "I have felt nothing. I have lived 2,000 years and I cannot remember a single moment that mattered. I thought that was strength. I thought that was what we were supposed to be." He turned to face his mother. "But I have watched my sister these past months. I have seen her change, grow, feel things I cannot imagine, and I have realized something terrible." His voice cracked. "I am jealous. I am jealous of a human who has lived barely 40 years because he has felt more in that time than I have in all my centuries." Walked forward and knelt before. "I do not know if you are right about everything," the prince said, "but I know this much. The old ways have given us nothing but emptiness. Perhaps it is time to try something new." The chamber erupted. Nobles shouted, some in anger, some in agreement. The careful order of society cracked like ice in spring. One by one, others stepped forward. Lady, Thessaly, young nobles who had questioned quietly for years, elders who remembered the old stories, people from the lower city who had hidden their mixed blood for generations. They did not kneel. They stood beside, a wall of support that grew with every passing moment. Queen rose from her throne. Power crackled around her, ancient and terrible. "You would destroy everything," she hissed. "Everything we have built, everything we are." "No," said, stepping forward to stand beside. "We would save it by making it grow again, by letting it change." Mother and daughter faced each other across the chamber. The queen's power was immense but did not flinch. She had human fire in her blood now, human courage. "You can fight us," said quietly. "You can kill me. Kill everyone who stands here, but you cannot kill the truth. You cannot kill the idea that things can be different, that we can be more." The queen's hands trembled. For the first time in 12,000 years she looked old, not in body but in spirit, tired, broken. "What would you have me do?" she whispered. "Step down." His voice was gentle now. "Not in shame, in grace. Help us build something new. A council, not a throne. Voices from all peoples. A future where change is not feared but welcomed." The silence stretched for an eternity. Then slowly, Queen removed her crown. She set it on the arm of her throne and walked away without another word. It was over, and it was just beginning. 1 year later stood on a balcony overlooking Prime. The city had changed. Not dramatically, not overnight, but in small ways that would grow. Mixed-blood children played in parks that had once been forbidden to them. Human ships docked at ports where they had never been allowed. The universe was opening, slowly but surely. Joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Your old life?" Thought about it, the salvage runs, the loneliness, the feeling that nothing he did mattered. "No," he said, "this is where I belong." She leaned against him, her silver and red blood warm against his skin. "I never thanked you properly," she said, "for saving my life." "You saved mine too, seems fair." She laughed. It was a beautiful sound, the most beautiful sound in the universe. She said, "Do you know what humans call something they are willing to bleed for?" He smiled. He had said those words to her once, in a dark moment when hope seemed impossible. "Worth it," he said. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, as the sun rose over a changed world. A world that would never be the same. Because one human had refused to walk away. One human had bled. One human had proven that the briefest lives could leave the longest marks. And that was the most human thing of all.